Richard Tromans here again at Artificial Lawyer TV. Today we're having a bit of a discussion about consolidation in the legal tech market, something that we've been talking about as an industry for many years now, but really does seem to be happening now far faster than perhaps some of us had imagined. To help us explore this topic is Avaneesh, who is the CEO of Litera, a company that many of you know already, and which is getting a name for itself for acquiring and actually being part of its consolidation. So thanks for being with us, Avaneesh.
Thanks for having me today. Appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, it's good to have someone who actually knows what they're talking about because you guys are actually doing this. So let's start off before we're going to dig into Litera in a moment, but let's just talk broadly. Why is consolidation, i.e., the merging and bringing together of various legal tech companies into one entity, why is that happening now?
So I think it's always happened in some degree. You always have brands like Lexis and Thomson Reuters in the consolidation space. That's kind of that's been their principal way of innovating technology over the years. I think what you're seeing now is in the last few years, other organizations are now viewing consolidation as a path to success. And the reason why we believe it's good and why I think most industry thinks it's good is because consolidation should be a 1 + 1 = more than 2. If you're going to do 1 + 1 = less than 2, you should not consolidate, you should not merge, you should not acquire. But the genesis of that thesis is together we are better than we are separate. And the better it should be for the end user. So if all of those principles are aligned, you tend to see consolidation have a good play. And I think it's ripe for legal right now because historically, legal has been a place of hundreds and hundreds of applications sitting in a lawyer's desktop or for a CIO to manage. And that complexity gets expensive, it gets difficult to manage, and the workflow isn't ideal, or the end result for the end user isn't ideal. So a lot of the market demands it. They're asking us to get together. They're asking us to work more closely together. And oftentimes to work more closely together means just being part of the same family. So, but the goal, I think the goal has to be a 1 + 1 > 2 scenario.
Okay, well, let me ask a couple of questions on that. So, I mean, but don't we then end up with a bunch of platforms that in themselves are competing and which don't necessarily connect? So a lawyer would have the Thomson Reuters suite of, just about everything. They'll have a bit of LexisNexis, a bit of Wolters Kluwer. Then there'll be the Litera, which is going to get bigger, I am sure. But we'll come to that in a moment. And so you've got all these different competing platforms, and then you get that kind of like Microsoft, Apple thing, at least early on in the history of those two companies, where they said, well, we don't want to play with you because we don't want to encourage our clients to use you. We're basically trying to get you out of that market.
Yeah.
So, I mean, does it actually solve any problems, or does it just create bigger problems?
I hope it doesn't cause bigger problems. And when buyers are looking at platforms to bring on board and bring on products, I think one of the questions they should always ask, what is your philosophy on APIs? What's your philosophy of integration with other third parties? And the fundamental belief that we have, and we've always had to say, one is we want to integrate with everybody else in the ecosystem that exists inside a law firm. And the reason why we have to have that belief and why it's so ingrained in our business, and hopeful it's in our other platforms, business as well, is our primary focus is on the end user. So if our primary focus is on ourselves, if our primary focus is make our business bigger and better, and that's our number one goal, then a closed ecosystem makes sense. But when your primary focus is the end user and the actual person benefiting from technology, then you can have a much more holistic view and collaboration with other people. So if we can plug in and have other individuals plug in and have data flow in the right way, that's great. I think what's also critical is in consolidation, defining the scope that you're going to play in. If Litera all of a sudden starts doing billing software, people should raise a red flag. Like, wait, that business has been so focused on document centricity. How is billing and timekeeping aligning with that consolidation story? So if you can stay focused in what is your strength and core competency and build a consolidation map around that, I think you naturally have to integrate with everybody else around you. But if you're focused on self first, if you're focused on the business first as your priority success factor, then I think there'll be some issues in the marketplace.
Well, there's an interesting question there, isn't there, around who, you've got these various products which get packed in like Lego bricks, and you try and integrate them obviously as best as you can, and then you effectively market them as a single entity, because of course, otherwise, why are you doing it? That's
Right.
obvious. But then, of course, and we saw this with law firms when they started expanding, and one of the criticisms was, well, hold on a minute, your London office is great, but your Berlin office isn't particularly good, but you're selling us this thing that we can't get out of. And is
Yeah.
that the same with platformization, in that it's like, well, actually we like Workshare. Workshare's great. We like the historical Terra, background applications. They're all great.
Yeah.
But this other new thing that you bought the other day, I'm not sure we want to use that, and I feel under real pressure to use it. And it's like, and I've been trying to use this other system, but it doesn't integrate. I mean, aren't you kind of like shoehorning people into some things?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely see that could be a problem for the market. So it has to be in making those decisions and how you roll out the consolidated platform over time. You have to, again, if you take the end user and the law firm's approach and be empathetic to what they're going through, you have to have a runway. So if there's two products, and at the end of the day, one product will be the go forward platform product. You have to respect the fact that the product that's no longer going to be there in the future will still be used for the next 3 to 5 years potentially, because the movement of technology, the upgradability, and the ability to take change is not often as easy as all of us assume it is. So it's our burden on the business to support those products up until a point where maybe we're left with 5 or 6 customers, and then it's like, all right, now you're being shoehorned into what we've built. The rest of the marketplace is using it. It worked. It's been fully tested, and now we're going to give you a true date. But if you look at our historical acquisition strategy starting in 2016, we've never shoehorned anyone. We've always been fairly empathetic to that approach, and it's expensive on our side. We're still supporting a metadata solution that we said was no longer the go forward in 2017. It's been 3 years, and it's still being patched and maintained because customers still use it. So we have to, even if we make decisions, we have to be realistic of what the market's going to do. Our hope is that they upgrade to new tech, they upgrade to new items, because there's security patches, there's better workflows, there's AI, there's interoperability coming. So it's up to us that our innovation and product roadmap is so rich and rewarding that people want to move to the net new solution versus stay where they are.
Well, let's stay with that thought about what's next. So let's work this through. So, okay, HG buys Lutero 2019. Then you buy Doxley, you buy Workshare, Allegory most recently, and a couple of other companies, if I remember. Is that right? So how many acquisitions since HG bought you?
Since now that you've laid it out, since HG, we've done 5 deals in roughly 15 months.
And how much capital is that in total has been shelled out?
Including the purchase of Latera. I mean,
Yeah.
the current asset sitting on a solid 9-figure platform today.
In sort of market value, or
In market value, yeah. In revenue as a business, we're approaching $100 million of recurring revenue.
with all the consolidated business.
Consolidation, our natural growth that we have, we grow at 20-30% year over year on our recurring revenue as a combined business. Our ability to go back to market, and that growth comes from having good innovation. So we feel at the size and scale we're at now, we have to be acting in a different way and being much more proactive in the marketplace, being much more empathetic, being much more forward-looking as far as where technology, not just ours, but the general landscape's going. We have greater conversations with all the integration partners that we've never had before. So recognizing the size and scale we're at today, it commands us to be a little bit different of a business, and we can no longer customize a lot of our technology we used to over time, and you're more focused on what can we make that's configurable. So that's the big shift when you get larger, is you have to go away from customization and go into highly configurable solutions. So that way, if your London office does this and your German office does this, you can solve both of those workflows with some minor tweaks and configuration. So that's been the evolution of, I think, a brand that grows up from being an application developer to a platform developer. Is how do you view yourself?
That makes a lot of sense. And so, I mean, what happens next? Where are you going? Are if you're staying a sort of doc data centric
Yeah.
company platform, I mean, what else do you need? I imagine you need some type of NLP, AI doc review system, whatever you want to call it. Let's call it an NLP doc review system. You
Yeah.
need one of those. I imagine you probably want to buy some kind of virtual data room if you don't have one built into Litera already. I mean, what else? What else do you need?
That's great. So I view our investment and our growth into thesis statements. So we had a thesis statement back in 2017 that we wanted to solve the drafting problem. So we acquired 4 companies back then, went from Microsystems to become Litera over the course of a few years and did Litera Desktop. Then we felt we wanted to really go after the transaction management thesis, and that was the last 12 months. Now it's litigation. Along the way, we're seeing opportunities. We bought an AI company out of Israel called Best Practice in May. Not to the workflows that our partner Kira does really well. This solution is really more tied into identifying just-in-time potential good data to use as you're drafting a document. And I don't think we're going to go to the depth of analysis or go to the extreme of machine learning to the extreme that what Kira is really good at. That's a partner of ours that we integrate well with. We're not going to, that takes years of great intelligence and building, and we need to support that for the marketplace.
So I mean, HG has huge funds. I've been doing some research on HG. It's just crazy how much cash they've got. I mean, you guys could pretty much make a very interesting offer if you wanted to Kira or many other companies. I mean, is it worth you doing that?
When those types of opportunities come up, and we never know when they will come up, things like of those large scale. Definitely feel fortunate to be backed by a fund that's got liquidity to help us make those things come true. But we're very diligent and smart in that approach. I talked to a small set of CIOs globally that are the original believers of our vision of Litera Desktop, and they're the original believers of Litera Transact, and they'll probably be the original believers of Litera Litigate. And we have conversations once in a while to say, what are you seeing in technology? Where can we give you a better solution if we're partnered more closely with these vendors, identify those for us. And then we do our own diligence to say, how's that mirror to our story? And so where we are today and the brands we've purchased and acquired and brought together have been influenced by the market. I'd say 50% influence comes from the market, 50% comes from our own internal thoughts. And that's probably our go forward plan. So you never know where we'll end up on a strategy of acquisitions. The things you've highlighted, we've been dabbling in. We have a virtual data room that's built in Litera Transact that we believe can be competitive in the mid-market. And then looking forward, where else can we go? So we just entered litigation platform. It's currently US centric, just because litigation is one of those very geographical specific solutions. It's really hard to get a global litigation management place, but I think we can build it up over time to have a thin layer globally. We'll probably invest in that area quite a bit for the next few months to strengthen that offering.
I can think of a couple in London.
Yeah, that's a couple in London. Sorry.
We'll speak afterwards.
Love to hear your thoughts. Yeah.
But okay, so you're gonna probably buy another type of litigation platform or tool of some sort, perhaps.
Either that or build ourselves. We've got a pretty robust roadmap of our internal development. Our development team is, we're approaching 200 people in development. So we're able to churn out our own.
How big are you now as a company?
We're just shy of 400.
Right.
A team globally. We're in 9 countries.
Well,
and that comes from just buying, as you're acquiring, you get dev offices around the world and sales teams around the world. So we're about 400 people globally, and that's looking to grow over the next 12 months as well. And of that, almost 50% of those resources are allocated to product and development. So we're able to innovate our own technology. We're able to do a lot internally. So there's always that conversation of do you buy versus build? How much do you spend in building versus buying? And it's always opportunistic. Where can we accelerate from buying and where can we accelerate from building? Because when you buy, it's not always an accelerator. You could be buying something that has significant amount of work to be done to it to bring it to the levels that the business is
Well,
at.
I
So there's
mean,
always that
some of your acquisitions have been relatively young companies, haven't they?
analysis.
And even if they weren't young, in some cases, they've been quite small still. They haven't really blossomed, you know.
And that's really one of the reasons for consolidation is there is still a hesitation to bring on a startup into a large law firm and roll it out because that startup needs to have a backbone of support 24/7, be able to roll out and manage training and adoption and usage of that technology. So I think we've been lucky along the way to find really good startups that with our backbone can move even faster and bring that technology to the masses even quicker. So yeah, sometimes you're looking at older technology has been established like a Workshare and Latera. We're looking at a Doxley and a best practice that are newer technology that with the larger business behind them can move even faster. So we're trying to support really smart founders along the way and give them a vehicle to really grow their ideas faster under our platform.
No, so what about like a DMS? I mean, are you pretty much covered with what you have available already, or is that something you need to bring in or build?
I've had a very strong belief that data storage we're agnostic to, because as the data storage evolution continues, I think we'll naturally see changes in that industry of how firms think of data storage, how they think of data reuse, and where data lives. I think historically we've always looked at bespoke systems that are focused on legal, and that may change over time. Our view is to be agnostic to data storage and say data can be wherever it is. It's in iManage, NetDocs, OneDrive, SharePoint, Box, Dropbox, wherever it is.
Yeah.
Because you have to share and collaborate with your clients, and the clients may want to use Google Drive and you're using iManage. We have to be able to plug into both situations. So we try to be agnostic to data storage in all of our integration points.
No, that makes sense. Well, let's just, we're getting towards the end, so let's just look at HG and your future. I mean, you know, I was looking at some of the various purchases and sales. I mean, you know, HG has done in some cases an 18-month turnaround and made three times that, made a huge profit on in just 18 months. I mean, what's the end game here? I mean, when does HG say, okay, guys, that's good, you're done,
Yeah.
we're selling you? And then I guess the second question is, who do they sell you to? I mean, there are very few companies out there that would know what to do with Litera once
Yeah.
it's a little bit more. I mean, you know, Thomson Reuters would know what to do, but they don't need Litera because they've already covered off some of the things you're doing.
Right.
LexisNexis, I know Science Walters Kluwer. They could sell you on to another private equity company and keep growing, I guess, or an IPO. I mean, it's like it's one of the curious things, isn't it? I mean, what do you once they've built this thing, right?
Yeah.
What do they do with it?
Yeah. I think as a leader, my first job is to build a brand that
Hmm.
can stand the test of time. And once you enter the private equity world, so the first brand, Microsystems, was owned by private equity back in 2012 through 2016. K1, as a private equity group, owned Microsystems from 2016 to 2019. That's when HG took over. So our job is to be agnostic of ownership, like we are to a DMS. Whoever the ownership is should benefit from a strong thesis, a strong profitability margin, strong growth, and feel like we're giving back to the investors that have taken the time to put cash in the business for however long they're here for. It could be 3 years, 5 years,
but do you get a say in? I presume you're a shareholder, even though of some type, even though HG is the majority shareholder. I mean, actually, let's cover that off. Do you actually own shares in the company you work for, or is it all completely owned by HG?
no. In these approaches, it's always a blend of management
So,
employees and the founders.
so based on that premise, presumably you have a say in who you get sold to.
Yeah, and we had to say that's right. You're right, and then we had to say from K1 to HG, we had a good input there of where we thought the brand had the best success to
Hmm.
grow in the next thesis.
Mm.
And if and when HG feels like they're content with what we've done here and would like to put their money somewhere else, I'm pretty confident again that we get to protect the brand and say where should this belong long term, and that evolution continue. I think Latera as a brand is at this point um, just as strong. Will be here for a long time, like a Thomson Reuters, Lexus.
You know what? I mean, I'm kind of thinking you'd be better off doing an IPO, maybe on probably not the main market, obviously, because you need much, much bigger revenues. But because then at least you stay as a integral entity. Whereas if they try and sell you on to a buyer, like I said, there's a relatively few buyers who want this great big chunk of legal technology, right? If you were broader, if you were sort of like not legal specific, that would open up the market. But you've kind
Sorry.
of you've got these litigation tools.
Right.
It's very legal specific. I mean, if you could reach the kind of benchmarks you needed to get onto one of the smaller markets, would you do an IPO?
Yeah, I don't think it's we haven't talked about it, so I wouldn't say it's on or off the table. I do agree with you that what we're doing as a business is while we're still very much law firm eccentric, and 90% of our revenue comes from the law firm market. There's a growing piece of our business coming from the corporate in-house counsels as well. So that's a growing market that we haven't really exploited and tapped into. And if you look at our core revenues coming from the global 1,000 firms, even though we have a tail of 10,000 logos that are customers, we still have a long way to go to really achieve full, what I would say is full on usage case, right? So we're being used throughout the law firm globally. We still have a lot of ways to go. And the business that we're building, the brand that we have, the value we bring to a business, to a law firm buyer is the same confidence commitment. So if we were to go buy a new workspace or develop some technology or go buy, they know that when we come and offer it to them, that it's going to be protected, it's going to be secure, it's going to be working, and it fits into the overall platform. So I think as a brand, we have a very long runway of expanding what we can bring to the table, not just being focused on drafting, litigation, transaction, but that story can expand through innovation and acquisition. So while we have the size and scale we're at today, our strategies over the next 24 months is to almost double the business and bring that story to market and keep growing. So that we feel really strong that the brand equity we have will give us a decent runway to keep this story going. Decent meaning 7, 10, 15 years of opportunity in front of us.
Wow. So we should be looking at for 2 more years of acquisition stories.
I mean, Latera probably has a decade long of acquisition stories ahead of it. Under, that if you think about it, right? Private equity typically does a 3 to 5 year hold, but you never know what that means and when those things transfer and move on. But our thesis has always been in 2016 till now is opportunistic acquisitions that make sense to the brand, and I don't think that changes anytime in the near future for us.
Fantastic. Thanks, Avaneesh. That's great. And good luck with everything and congratulations on your most recent acquisition.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Take care.